Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive.
Yeah.
And today, we're going to be talking about Sergei Mavrodi.
Okay.
So
right.
this is MMM, one of the biggest Ponzi schemes
Yes.
in history.
One of the biggest financial scandals.
And it's a really fascinating story.
Absolutely.
So we're going to be taking a deep dive into his life and career and try to answer the question, is this guy a visionary or a con artist?
You know, it's interesting because if you look at the number of people who were involved in MMM, depending on who you ask, you'll get some wildly different answers.
Okay.
Some sources say as low as 5 million.
Yeah.
Others say as high as 40 million people were involved.
That's a huge...
Yeah,
that's a huge range.
it is.
I mean, we're talking about a significant chunk of Russia's population
Absolutely.
at the time.
Yeah.
So before we get into the mechanics of how MMM worked, I'm curious about Mavrodi, the man himself. I mean, this isn't some, slick Wall Street guy in a fancy suit. You know, we're talking about a guy who bred aquarium fish, lived relatively modestly, and even got elected to parliament while he was in prison.
Yes.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
He was full of contradictions.
Yeah.
And, you know, even in his early business ventures, you can see this kind of mix of entrepreneurial drive and, let's just say, flexible ethics.
Right.
So, you know, before MMM, he was selling pirated cassette tapes and importing computers, which was, you know, a pretty tricky business in the Soviet Union at the time.
A very different world.
Totally.
Yeah, so he was already pushing boundaries.
He was already operating in that gray area.
Right. And then comes MMM, which started as a cooperative, selling imported tech equipment.
Yeah, it's wild to think about that. Like, that's where it started, and they even sponsored.
Yeah, they were giving away free subway rides in Moscow.
In Moscow. It's crazy. Like, it's almost hard to believe that that would transform into one of the biggest financial scandals ever.
Right, and that's where I think the context of post-Soviet Russia is so important.
Yeah,
absolutely. You have this newly independent nation that's in the midst of this massive economic upheaval.
Right.
I mean, people are struggling.
Yeah, they were distrustful.
They don't trust the government.
Of the government.
Right.
They were desperate for something to believe in.
Right, for anything that would give them some stability.
Right.
Some hope.
Totally.
And that's really where MMM kind of...
This fertile ground of uncertainty and desperation.
Yeah. So how do they go from selling computers to this massive financial scheme?
So they kind of transitioned into the world of finance through these voucher investment funds. Now, these were a product of Russia's privatization efforts. You know, they were basically these vouchers that were supposed to give ordinary citizens a stake in formerly state-owned companies.
I see.
But the system was really confusing. And it was really easy to manipulate.
So Mavrodi saw an opportunity.
He did.
Yeah.
He swooped in.
He swooped right in.
With MMM and started promising these astronomical returns.
Yes.
I mean, we're talking up to 3,000%.
Yeah, it's crazy. To me,
there's a huge red flag.
That just screams scam.
Yeah.
But obviously, millions of people didn't see it that way.
They were craving stability.
Right.
They wanted a chance at a better life. And Mavrodi tapped into that with this brilliant marketing campaign that was very deceptive.
Right.
But it was brilliant. Yeah.
So his MMM ads featured this character, Leonya Golubkov.
Yeah.
And he was this average Joe. This everyman who had struck it rich thanks to MMM.
Right.
Right.
It's a really powerful narrative.
It is.
Especially for
a
population that's grappling with financial hardship.
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess as effective as that marketing was, I mean, was there kind of a darker side?
Absolutely. I mean, portraying this...
portraying this everyman...
average guy.
Getting rich.
Getting rich.
Yeah. I think it created this false sense of security.
You
know, people saw their neighbors, their friends seemingly getting rich, and they didn't want to miss out. This FOMO.
The fear of missing out.
That combined with Mavrodi's charisma and that promise of quick riches, it created this perfect storm.
Yeah, it really does sound...
It's like a textbook example of a speculative bubble.
Absolutely.
I mean, at its peak, MMM was taking in millions of dollars daily.
Right.
There were stories about Mavrodi having rooms full of cash.
That's right.
I mean,
the influx of money
yeah,
was staggering.
Wow.
But like all bubbles,
Yeah.
it was built on a foundation of unsustainable promises.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as MMM grew, so did the scrutiny from the authorities.
Right.
They started to see this massive, unregulated entity as a threat to the stability of the country.
Right. That's just trying to build a new system.
A new financial system. Exactly.
And this is a wrench in the works.
Yeah. They started cracking down on MMM, accusing Mavrodi of tax evasion.
Right. It seems like that's always the first step.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
It's often easier to prove tax violations than outright fraud.
Right. Go after the taxes and then try to build a case from there.
Build a case later. Yeah.
But even that accusation of tax evasion was enough to trigger a chain reaction.
Oh, yeah.
The government froze MMM's accounts.
Yeah, they did.
That essentially just cuts off the flow of money.
The flow of money.
In and out of the scheme.
In and out.
Right, and this is where Mavrodi does something really audacious.
He doubles down.
He doubles down. Instead of backing down, he starts issuing these MMM coupons with his own face printed on them.
It's wild.
It's like he's trying to create his own currency.
Yeah, it's a fascinating tactic.
Yeah.
By putting his face on the coupons, he's further blurring the lines between a financial investment and personal loyalty to him.
It's like he's saying, trust me.
Yeah.
Not the system.
Exactly. Don't trust the banks.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Yeah, and that really resonates with a lot of his followers. I mean, many of whom already distrusted the government.
Absolutely. They saw him as a champion. Yeah. Kind of a savior.
This kind of Robin Hood figure.
Exactly.
Right, and then he takes it a step further.
Yeah.
He decides to run for parliament.
I know.
And he does this while he's under investigation for tax evasion.
While under investigation.
And get this, from prison.
But from prison?
I mean, it sounds unbelievable.
It's such a bold move.
It is.
But it's brilliant.
Yeah.
He understood the power of populism.
Yeah.
He appealed directly to MMM investors,
right?
Many of whom were hoping that he would
make them whole.
Somehow make them whole.
If he got into power.
Yeah. If he gained political power.
And it worked.
It worked.
He wins.
He won the election.
So now you have this convicted financial criminal.
This alleged con man.
In the Russian parliament.
In parliament.
It's crazy. What did he do?
It's wild.
With this newfound power.
Well, that's the interesting part.
Yeah.
He barely participated in parliament at all.
So he just used it as a way.
Yeah, he used his parliamentary immunity to avoid prosecution.
Avoid going back to prison.
Exactly. Right. But then almost as quickly as he appeared, he vanished.
He disappeared.
He disappeared.
Wow.
It was years before authorities finally tracked him down.
It's just, I mean, his ability to manipulate the system.
Yeah.
To evade capture.
It's impressive.
It is impressive.
It's also unsettling.
Yeah, it's unsettling. And it really makes you wonder, what were his true motivations?
Yeah. What was he really after?
Was he just a brilliant con man?
Right. Was it just greed?
Driven by greed?
Yeah.
Or did he actually believe?
Or did he believe?
He was fighting against some unjust system.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a question.
It's a question that has baffled.
That's baffled a lot of people.
Experts for years. Yeah. I mean, there's evidence to support both sides.
Right.
On the one hand, he amassed a fortune.
Right.
Right? He was allegedly filling rooms with cash.
Yeah, rooms full of cash.
But then on the other hand, he lived pretty modestly.
Right.
And he claimed to be motivated by this desire to challenge the status quo.
Right. So it's really hard to know for sure.
Yeah.
So eventually, the authorities do catch up with him.
They do.
In 2003. He's convicted of fraud in 2007. But what about the money?
Right. What about all those billions?
The billions of rubles that MMM collected.
Right.
From investors. Was any of it ever recovered?
Sadly, no. The money vanished.
Wow.
It's believed to be hidden away in offshore accounts, leaving millions of people.
With nothing.
With nothing.
Wow. I mean, it's just heartbreaking.
It is.
To think about the scale of the losses.
Yeah.
But I guess even more astonishing to me is that even after being convicted of fraud, Mavrodi remained defiant.
He did.
I mean, he blamed the investors for their bond losses.
He shifted the blame.
Yeah.
Yeah, he claimed they were greedy.
Right.
And they should have known better.
Classic defense mechanism.
Right.
You know, just not taking any responsibility for his actions. And And what's even more disturbing is that even after serving his sentence, he continued to create similar schemes in other countries.
He did it. He targeted vulnerable populations in places like India, China, South Africa.
So he just kept going.
Yeah, he kept going.
Unbelievable that people would trust him again.
I know.
After MM.
Right?
I mean, didn't they know his history?
Well, information didn't travel as quickly back then.
I guess so.
And plus, he was really good at adapting his message to different cultural contexts.
Right. So he'd kind of tailor his pitch to whatever audience.
Whoever he was talking to.
He was in front of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it seemed like he always
seemed to find the places where people were struggling.
Right.
People were...
facing economic hardships.
And desperate for a way out.
For a way out.
Mm-hmm.
It makes you wonder what allows these kinds of schemes.
What are the conditions
that allow this to happen?
In so many different places.
Yeah.
I mean, it's more than just individual greed.
Oh, it's way more than just greed.
There's got to be deeper societal factors at play.
Absolutely. I mean, things like economic inequality, lack of financial literacy, distrust of traditional institutions.
Right.
All of these things.
Create an environment
where these schemes can thrive.
Yeah.
People feel like the system's rigged against them.
Exactly.
So they're more willing to take a gamble.
Yeah, they're looking for a way out.
On something that promises.
They're looking for hope.
Quick riches.
Right.
And Mavrodi was a master exploiting that feeling.
Yeah, he knew how to tap into
that desperation. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to remember that the victims of these schemes aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet.
No, they're real people.
Yeah, these are real people.
With families.
Often from marginalized communities. Who have lost their hard-earned savings.
Absolutely.
Sometimes everything they had.
Everything.
It's terrible.
It's tragic.
Yeah. And that's why it's so important to educate ourselves. And our communities.
Yeah.
About the dangers. Financial fraud.
A financial fraud?
Yeah. I mean, we need to be able to recognize the warning sign.
Absolutely.
To ask critical questions.
Absolutely.
Ask questions.
And be wary of promises that sound
too good to be true.
If it sounds too good to be true.
Yeah, if it sounds too good to be true.
It probably is.
It probably is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think Mavrodi's story.
It's a cautionary tale.
Yeah. It's a reminder.
That charisma.
And persuasion. Can be powerful tools. And not always for good. Right. And it also highlights the need for stronger consumer protections and financial regulations to prevent these kinds of schemes.
To prevent this from happening
again. So ultimately, Sergei Mavrodi's legacy is a complex one.
It is complex.
He was a brilliant mathematician, a master manipulator, and a polarizing figure who continues to fascinate and provoke.
He does.
Was he a visionary? Or a con artist?
Right.
A product of his time?
Or a timeless example of greed?
Or a timeless example of human greed and deception?
I
guess those are questions we'll leave for you to ponder.
What do you think?
Let us know on social media.
Let us know.
And until next time, keep diving deep.